Okey-doke.
Good evening, everyone.
Hola, hola,
Joining
hola.
us. Yes, this is, man, we've been doing this for 10 years. This is Ignite Your Soul Connection. This is season 16 simply because we do the winter solstice and also the summer solstice. So, happy summer solstice because it's coming in 2 days. And I want everyone to know that we have been very meticulous about presenting these conversations during this time of year because during this time of year, the universe, the cosmos, everything is very open to us, and just as we are open to it. So it's a good time to cleanse ourselves, to reconnect ourselves to the universe, to God, to spirit, to, whatever. There's a power that's governing this world. And for some reason, we have stopped connecting. And that's one of the reasons we're having this conversation, because we want our people to really know that trauma is put on us so that we don't get to live a wonderful life. And we want to help people, get to the other side of that. So at the end of this week is three things that I want you to be able to say that you got out of this conversation. One, you really have a clear understanding of what it means to be self actualized. Two, you have tools for healing. You know how to use them. You know how to connect the people to get to help if you do need that. And you also become more willing to use them. And then the third thing is having you create the ability to hold space for those who are not ready to heal. All right, so those are the three things, and there will be a test. So on Friday, no,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But anyway, my name is Mushim Soot. Some people know me as Rita Stewart. I am the owner of Master Force, the founder of Master Force International Leadership Academy. And I am excited about the many Master Force coaches that have gone through our program, because they make a difference in the world every single day. And I get to watch. And it's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. But tonight I want to introduce you to the conversation of healing trauma. And the two guest speakers that we have are Ausar Aten, and we also know him as Greg Stanton, and also Teresa Lugo, coming to us from Puerto Rico. I'll give you a chance to get to know them in a minute. But one of the things that I want you to know is that we're asking you to listen from a point of expanding your capacity to hear, right? Most of the time when we're in the conversation, we're just disagreeing. I don't believe them. I don't. You have all the time in the world to do that. Tonight, what we want you to do is just listen, maybe even take some notes, because you can go and do your own research on what we're talking about. Because most of the time, we're talking from experiences that we've had with ourselves, with each other, with our clients. So we do have the receipts. But what we want to do tonight is we want to expand your capacity to hear, so that you know that there are people in the community that are looking out for you. All right, we're not in this by ourselves. All right. All right. So now let's get started with healing trauma. And I'm going to introduce the coaches based on how long I have known them. So yes, I've had the privilege of meeting this brother King, the universe. Man, I'm telling you, we have such a generous universe. Wouldn't you say, Osir?
Very much so. Very much so.
You
It
bet.
always gives you what you need.
At the right time.
Right.
At
That's
the
right.
right time. And I love that. I just happened to be at the store Etongo on 79th and Ingleside helping out one of my sister friends, Manetti, and you called the store and I answered the phone.
And I was a long way away, but I made it in there that day to pick up that book I was
The
looking for.
Medulla tear. You
That's right.
just
That's right.
and then we have been connected, and that was well over 30 years. So
Time flies.
yeah, I just want to acknowledge you for being someone who just has always been there for me, always in my space, always. I think just about every piece of technology I have, you had something to do with it, and that's just been an amazing gift to my development and because my whole thing was being able to receive. So that you and Shalon
My
was
thing was to
having
make sure you get it
yeah.
out to the world what you need to say.
Okay, that's right. That's right. So thank you. So what would you have to say? What else would you say about yourself here?
Well, my name is my government name is Greg Stanton. I go by Ausar. I have been studying the Medunet turf since 90. That was like 92 when I met Mushim Sut,
Hmm.
and have been in a long conversation with her around that, evolved through it. I came into Master Force in 2010. I think I was one of the first classes,
Yeah.
and I joined at the end. I joined that class particularly because my wife had just died,
Hmm.
and a few months earlier, and I thought it would be a great way to tune in and tap into myself and do the work I needed to do. Was married at that time 30 years. It would have been 40 years this year.
Wow.
We have four adult children. I got the opportunity to spend time with two of them on yesterday. One is out of town with her children, and then the other son is in Mississippi.
Okay.
Between the four kids, I have 10 grands. Two sets, or a set are teenagers, and a set are in grammar school. So that's a beautiful thing. Um, so my children are everyday children. I celebrate them for who they are, not for what they have accomplished.
Yes.
But particularly, I celebrate them for facing life challenges and moving through them. And what makes me an expert in this conversation today? Well, my as a therapist for a long time, I was a therapist, which I shift to a life coach, and my clientele has been predominantly those of African descent in the diaspora. And with that being said, many of them are showing up with different levels of trauma, and so that has been a way that I have framed their coaching practice.
That is wonderful. And you have been just so instrumental inside of the conversation. And we'll talk about that a little bit tonight of helping people to move over from religion to spirituality in a way that empowers them to still understand the myths and the stories that are that we use for our development.
And
They're
I'm
still
glad
useful.
you mentioned that
Hmm.
because we will talk about religion as a coping mechanism
Yeah.
for trauma. And so that is some coping mechanisms can be positive, and some of them can start out positive and be detrimental to your growth. So this conversation, spirituality is a big part of who I am. I'm a divine spiritual being having a human expression and experience. So I frame it from there.
That's exactly right. Yes. All right, Teresa Lugo. Now, the thing again, we talked about how wonderful
Mm.
the universe is, and we were 10 years ago having a conversation on Ignite Your Soul Connection when Teresa called in and was sharing with us her father's death and how she had literally felt him take his last breath and she had the experience of the was it a what was it, it was some kind of animal
It
that
was yeah, it was a deer. It's a buckler,
yeah,
a
with
big
the
one.
horns, the buck,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you saw him? Was it you physically saw it? Tell us the
Yes,
story. Yeah.
yes. It's so incredible how God works, I tell you. But I had just left my dad. I was with him all week. I know he was very ill, but my sisters were like, just go, have a great weekend, get out of here. We got him. And when I went to Wisconsin with my girlfriends that invited me out, we decided that Sunday morning to go on a hike, and we saw this river and had a little bench there. And I thought, wow, that's nice. So one of them decided, hey, why don't we sit down and meditate? And I was like, no, I don't know about that, because I was very Catholic. And to me, meditation was like, okay, we're going into the voodoo world. I don't know what's happening here. Well,
Right.
little did I know. Well, so anyway, she was like, don't worry about it. It's not that darkness. Breathe in light, breathe out darkness.
Oh, I lost your sound, Teresa.
Okay, then I'm going to get off of this really quick. Hold on.
Yeah, I lost your sound.
Let me get off of this.
Okay, let's say it. Let me hear you now.
Now you hear me?
Yes.
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 So she had told me, just breathe in light, breathe out darkness, breathe in light, breathe out darkness. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. All right. So as I started to do that, what happened was I saw this big deer buck, and I freaked out. And she was like, continue to meditate, just continue to breathe in. And I said, okay. And as I did that, all of a sudden I heard this animal just make this really like exhale, like a horse, like this. And I'm like, holy cow. And I jumped up like, whoa. And all of a sudden my spirit just said, that's your father's last breath. And
Wow.
I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, it was so audible. I had never in my entire life had an experience like that, ever in my life.
Wow.
And I couldn't even speak. I mean, we were done meditating and they were like, so what did you get? What did you feel? I couldn't even talk, let alone walk. And then when we got back to the hotel, I got the call from my family to get back to the hospital. My father was very, very, very ill. So that's the story. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you called in, and because you just had a hard time, that was rough. And we're going to talk about that
Yeah.
like too. But that's when you called in and just really wanted to have a conversation about how to get back to your
Yeah.
own heart. Yeah, because you were in a lot of pain. I do.
I couldn't get out of it. I was stuck in this thing. I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I never had that experience.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
So after meeting you, Miss Wizard of Oz, everyone that seems to meet you, you just turn us into this incredible being out here,
Oh no,
making
I
life
don't do it.
changes.
I absolutely can't take credit for that.
Oh well, let me just say this, because as a Reiki master, I know that I don't do healing, but I know that spirit uses me and it
Yeah.
comes through me. So I
Yeah.
know you get that.
Yes,
You are
absolutely.
you are the reason. You are that. You are that. I just love that energy. But so after meeting you, I ended up getting certified as a life coach. You had suggested that I do that. I came to see you. I met you, and I wrote about you in my book because Spirit had told me I had to write this book through this process. And I remember leaving to meet you, and Spirit was like, bring her something. She's a queen. You remember that?
I do remember that.
I mean, it's like all this stuff started happening to me. Like, I'm like, queen, what?
A queen of spades. I'm a queen of
Ladies
spades. I was born on January 2nd. Both Greg and I are queen of spades. Come on.
It's crazy. So that's exactly what I did. I listened to Spirit. I met you, and here I am as an executive life coach. And I'm telling you, I love the work that I do. I love to hear people tell me their great breakthroughs and how they've, mended their relationships and, created an amazing life because of the work that we did together. Because
Yes.
I always tell them that, oh, like they'll say, oh, you, like right now, I'm saying you, and you're like, no, it ain't me, it's through me. And that's the same thing I say to them, because it's just, God is really using us to just be that
For
instrument.
each other. Absolutely.
Yes.
I totally.
So I truly appreciate this gift that God gave me through you and all the other coaches. But also, years later, I became a Reiki master because that was my calling. I knew that I had a gift to heal, or just to be a space holder for others' transformation. And then after that, I ended up moving to Puerto Rico to write the book that Spirit told me I needed to write because of all this experience. So I ended up writing the book, and you were again instrumental with that book, and you helped me just go through the book and edit it and do so much spiritual work, because it takes spiritual work to write a book. It's not just writing.
It's not
So,
just right.
yeah. So I thank you so much for that. And so here I am. And now here I am in Puerto Rico. I started a nonprofit. I co-founded a nonprofit called Land and Heart Project, where we assist the farmers in, physical labor as well as financially to be able to help them get some seeds, because we have a lot of storms here and they lose all of their crops, and then we have to start over again. And so I've just really been blessed in that way. I mean, trust me, I could never see my life the way it is today had not my father's death take me into this another level of being. I mean, at that time I was, making money, being, this amazing boutique owner of 2 stores and socialite and, fundraiser. I mean, I was all that. And all of a sudden I was just like facing just me, not labels, not all the labels. I was facing just this. And then that was very transformative. So I'm just a vessel being used out in the world for other people's transformation. And I feel honored, and I thank you so much for, the opportunity to be here with you and our set. I feel like this is my brother too. I feel so blessed, and we have to go visit him. I just feel like
I agree. We need to do a girls' trip to see him.
Yeah, we gotta go check on him.
We be having too much fun, man. I'm telling you.
We can meet in Chicago. I would prefer that. It's so much more to do.
I don't know. We got to come down there and show people. We need to show them who you representing. Okay.
Exactly.
Show him who's in your tribe in Chicago.
Bring all them fine sisters from.
And that's all I'm saying, because we got the Shalot. Come, shoot. They gonna be
I have to put on a conference down here.
That's a good idea.
In St. Louis. That's exactly right. We'll come.
That's a great idea.
Exactly right. Well, thank you. I just wanted us to let people know how we're connected, so that they can know that we're doing this work, and we're doing this work together. And we also want to have an opportunity for people to know that you have to find your tribe to do this work.
Yes.
Right? So it doesn't have to be us, but the idea is that by the end of this week, you will be inspired to do that, because for most of y'all, if you come from where we come from, we know it was rough. We get that, right? So we're going to talk about that. All right. So this week, Healing Trauma, we have 5 nights. Tonight, we are just laying out the case studies. Now, the reason we're laying out the case studies is so that you can actually get an idea of some of the things that people have come through that found their gift on the other side of trauma. And that you don't allow yourself to get hoodwinked into what society is telling you and making you think that you're here to be mentally ill, victims, and all of that. That's not what you're here for. Greg said it, Sarah said it. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So you need to tap into what? Your spirit.
Yes.
You have to. We all have to. All right. So that's what we're talking about. So to kick it off, we're going to start off with our first case study. And don't worry, after tonight, we'll take the case studies, get them, and we'll have them online for you for tomorrow, so that, through the week, you can keep taking notes on them and get some ideas of the healing aspects. But right now, we just want to lay it out. So we're going to start with poverty and unemployment. Oh, Sarah, what do you have for us in that topic?
Well, can I start with, I found a definition that I gave to a group of teenagers about trauma because initially I found they were having a very difficult time with the clinical definition. So I had put together a definition that I use when I'm dealing with the youth around trauma.
Yes.
Trauma is when something really bad or scary happens to us, and it
Yes.
can often make us feel upset or scared even after the event is over. We talked about it might be something like a car accident, a natural disaster, or something bad that happened to us personally. We deal drive deeper into that by realizing that trauma can make you have a strong emotion and reactions like feeling anxious or having a night series of nightmares or wanting to avoid certain places or people. It's important to know that trauma is not your fault. There are people who can help us. So this is what I go into with the youth when I'm talking about trauma. So what I put together is a case study of an individual that I dealt with. So we're going to explore the impact of job loss and caregiving responsibilities of a trauma. No, this is yeah, the just is a job loss one of a 45-year-old African American male. It focused on the gentleman, I'll call him Michael. He's a 45-year-old African American male who experienced job loss due to his company moving overseas. Michael's inability to relocate was primarily his role as a primary caregiver for his elderly mom. Kate here aims to examine Michael's background, the circumstances around his job loss, his caregiving responsibilities, and how these factors contributed to an expression of trauma symptoms. Notice I said an expression. He had been employed for 19 years with a company that decided to relocate overseas, but unfortunately he couldn't go because he had a commitment to his mom and he could not afford to take her there. So this sudden job loss and the resulting impact on his financial stability had a significant impact on his overall well-being. And so some of the things I looked at was his company relocation was a result of this decision. He had nothing to do with it. It came suddenly, and it impacted his life, resulted in financial strain. And a lot of times trauma is a stress response. The loss of his job created financial challenges for him. He was no longer able to rely on stable income. This financial strain contributed to increased stress, anxiety, impacting his overall mental well-being. So some of the things we had to deal with was his primary caregiving role. He assumed the role of primary caregiver for this elderly parent. Many people have to deal with that required ongoing assistance with daily activities and medical needs. And this made it difficult for him to move forward because he was like caught in the middle of this situation. It became an emotional burden for him. He had to balance caregiving responsibilities with the aspects of his life that was now demanding because he didn't have a job. So I don't know how much you want to go into it.
Well, hold on. So, is married or single? Is Michael married?
He was single.
And then, do you have a
M-
birthday for him? I know his age was 45. Birth date, and then does he have any children?
yeah, yeah. No, he was single.
Any children?
Thinking back, I think he was born in spring. No children.
No
No. Yes,
children.
he was the only child. Um, yeah, only child, no children. So he had the responsibility of taking care of his mom. He did not have a social network that could be part of that. So with that being said, he had the primary role as the primary caregiver.
So, one of the things that we like to do inside of the work, right, is that we like to know the birth dates because people can go and look inside of destiny cards, right, or go to what is it, Seven Thunders,
Yeah.
seventhunders.com, and actually find out what their card is because many of us are born with a destiny, right? All of us are really. We on a mission. So when you study and get to know yourself, you get a better idea about why this circumstance is happening, right? So that's why I was asking for the birthday. And you said spring, and that doesn't quite give us the card for him. So is
Right.
there any way to verify that or no?
Not at this time,
Not at
because
this time, right? Because
this is
then
about
what we
picking
get
up.
to do is almost, as we're going through the week, we get to kind of have that information to look at as well. Like they could be going, this could be the year whether it, in the book it says this is your graduation year. You're gonna have a lot of challenges.
I
Like,
can
whoa,
find it in
yeah. All right. So is that something that maybe you can look
yeah.
into it? Okay, thank you. All right. And okay, I think I have it. And now, as a result of that, he ended up having financial losses, mental challenges, his well
Yeah.
being. And then,
Those are
so,
three. Yeah. Financial trauma,
mhm,
grief and loss, even though it wasn't a person, his job, his friendships, those things he was dealing with, and then just the emotional distress that was accompanying that, the job loss and caregiving. Yeah.
okay. And what would you say would be his desired outcome? What would you say would he would really love to have happen?
His one, since it was an employment issue, one of the questions I asked him, that very thing, he wanted to find viable employment that would allow him to continue to support his mom and develop friendships inside of that. Most of his friendships were associated with this job.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. All right. So that's the first one. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Teresa Lugo, what's the next one? Which one do you have?
Ah, that's a good question. I know you had wrote it up.
Okay, I have it here.
It's the death of a parent.
Yep, and you started on that a little bit. So yeah, go ahead and
That was so in this case I am the patient.
you are
And
the case study.
I am the case study. And it's interesting how we call that a case study or the patient, right? Because it is a case, it is something that we go through. It's something that's not normal for all of us when we pushed into a situation, in traumatic situations where we can't explain. But in my case, um, going through the death of my dad and feeling his last breath
Do you
was,
remember what age you were at that time?
I was 49. No, no, that's a lie. I'm probably 45.
Okay, and I don't want to say your birth date, but what's your card? Your card is a six
Six
o'clock.
of clubs.
Okay, there we go. Okay, married,
Um,
single,
Single.
children, two.
Two. Yeah.
All right, all right.
I forgot. I haven't even talked about my beautiful children, my beautiful three grandchildren. But anyways, they're a great reflection of me right now. I'm feeling their love. But anyways, going through that time in my life was very, very traumatic. I did not know what happened to me. I physically was not even present. Emotionally, I wasn't present. Spiritually, something was happening. So it was something happening in the spirit realm that I had no clue. And during that time, I just started to kind of just lose everything. I didn't want to be at my shops anymore. I had my boutiques in Oak Park and my fashion and all this great expression and all that. I just didn't want to be around people. I pretty much just found myself in a very dark place. And I remember calling my sister and saying, "Hey, I need help. Something's not right." And she was like, "Well, you just need to call, it's like a friend of ours that handles these different wonderful weekends away called Pathways." And I told her at that time, I said to her, "It's not that. Like, I didn't need mental help. I needed something. I felt like something was ripped out of my chest.
Mm,
Something just was emotionally, physically, just really heart-wrenching." So I didn't understand it. And as time went on, what I started to do and spirit was telling me to do, and I started hearing things. I'm telling you, it was very audible. Life was becoming a lot more audible, but there was nobody there. It was like me and spirit. And as
mm-hmm.
I was going through it, I just started writing. I just started journaling and writing and just taking notes about the things that I was hearing and wondering what was happening. And I remember a friend of mine telling me, hey, Teresa, go to your Bible and look at Psalms 42. And it talks about where the buck is at the river, and he's crying out for God and saying that I want a relationship with you. I want to be with you. And I was like, what? You know, she was like, get your Bible, get your Bible. So as I got the Bible and I read it, I was like, that was my father. My father was the type of guy that would say to anyone, hey, do you know my friend Jesus? You know, and everyone knew my dad like that. My father was very spiritual. He loved the Lord. And so when I kind of started putting two and two together, I started realizing like that's what happened at that river is my father like just came to me or connected with me and just said, I'm done. I'm going to be with my God finally. And I mean, that just opened up an avenue of understanding for me that was out of this world. And I started to realize that. And I said to the Lord, I remember praying, I said, okay, God, if this is what I need to go through, because I knew that there was going to be the death of me. There was going to be the death of what I thought myself to be or who I thought I was. And it was going to be like a transformation of from going from that point to like a whole new person. Not that person that cared about the money and the labels and the fancy cars and the fancy home. It was going to just strip me of everything. I knew, I kind of had a sense that I was going to be butt naked running down the street.
Wow.
I swear. And I said to God, I said, okay. And I made a pact with him. I said, Lord, I will go through this, but I'm going to ask that you guard my health. Because that I was very clear about. I knew that when you go through trauma or you go through a dark time in your life, if you don't care for your body, you can go into straight disease and sometimes fatal. That's why it's very important that when you're going through something that you learn to meditate, just breathe in, breathe out, you know, high nutrition, you know, don't.
Oh, we're going to talk to the plan. We'll talk to healing stuff tomorrow, but
but I mean, that's where I went. I had to go there because I knew that I wanted to care for this body. I knew that I was going to go through a really, really dark time, but I knew there was God. I knew that I was going to be okay. So that's the invite that I would give to anyone is to just know that in order for God to use you or spirit to take you to a whole nother level, for you to meet your new tribe, because I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of friends. I mean, I have 11 brothers and sisters, and I went through this for about 4 years, and not one of them came to my door like, how can I help you? What's wrong? What's happened to you? You know? And I remember talking to God about it during that time, like, where's my family? What's going on? And I remembered hearing, just be still. I'm working with you. I'm doing great works with you right now. They don't have space in this picture right now. And so I really started to realize that. And that was a good, I tell you, that was great work for me to go through because even now, years later, I still find myself alone a lot. And I wonder, you know, God, I wish, you know, once in a while people will call me and just check in. That'd be great. But then I realized, hey, remember, you're not of this world anymore. You're over here somewhere else doing different things.
Absolutely.
You got a different tribe and it's okay.
And it's okay. That's right.
It is. But you know, you're going to go through a lot. I mean, people will see you like if people see, you know, these great leaders of the world, you know, oh, trust me, they paid a hefty price to be where they're at. And
and that's a whole different because part of the challenge is that we think that people leading the world are role models for us and they really are not because they're not inside of a conversation of ascending they're in a conversation of controlling and living the lifestyle of materialism that they've gotten comfortable with. So that's the problem. The challenge that we have is that we keep thinking that those are our role models. Entertainers and athletes are our role models and leaders of the world. No, we
No.
have to get back to our own leadership. We have to start with leading and taking care of ourselves. Like you said, a priority. Our health is a priority. Nobody else is supposed to be taking care of us. You are special, but to who? Yourself, right?
Yes.
You keep
Yes.
waiting for somebody to take care of you, you're missing the point. You missing who God said you are. Okay, so stop looking for somebody else. And then the other thing is that all of that other stuff is a distraction.
Yeah.
You can hear that, right? You can,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was great. All
Yeah.
right, well, we'll hear from you again, and we'll keep going
Yeah.
with that. And that's really great
Okay.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, what were you saying, Sarah? You had something?
No, I found the birth dates.
Oh, okay,
No,
Good.
I found the birth dates.
okay,
For that case study, he was April 22nd, which was makes him a queen of clubs and a five of clubs.
okay.
Wow.
Queen, yeah.
Hmm.
And it was April.
22nd.
Okay, wonderful. Yay. See, that I'm telling you, and that's part of our intake is to get that birthday. And even though we just use that one point, there are other points that you can use because you can get your astrology, your sun sign, your moon sign, your ascending sign. It's so many different elements that you need to know yourself from so that you're not starting at kindergarten talking about what do you want to be when you grow up.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's you don't even know who you are. How you gonna answer that? But anyway, I digress. So, all right, Teresa, was that it for you? Was that yours? Let me see. And then your current occupation is a life executive life coach. You're employed as your own owner, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Reiki master, working with energy, moving energy, the importance of it,
Yep, moving energy. Okay,
making sure
cool.
we're good.
All right, and we'll talk more about that throughout the week. Okay, and then the next conversation is one that I would like to talk about, and like Teresa, I want to talk about my own personal growth through my troubled youth, and it's so interesting because I did not know that I had a troubled youth until I got to college and realized that everybody had a good life. Like, wow, everybody got a mother and father and food and people buy them shoes when they have holes in, but, I can laugh at that now. But growing up, the the biggest challenge that I had happened when I was 5 years old, and I came home from school, and my grandmother and aunt, they were packing our clothes, and my grandmother said, "You're going to be coming to stay with me for a while because your mother is visiting a friend." And I was the baby, I'm the baby girl, so that didn't sit well with me because my mother, like they say, spoiled me. But the youngest, you tend to need some kind of special attention, right? But anyway, we went to my grandmother's house, and my mother didn't come back. And I'm thinking, went to a friend's house, that's an overnight visit. We used to go spend a night with somebody, we came back in a day or two. Well,
Mhm.
she didn't come back, and I kept saying, "Where's mommy?" To the point where the adults around me got upset and told me to shut up and get out of their face, and so I cried a lot. It was actually almost 6 months before my grandmother said, "Yeah, we're going to see your mother today," and that was Easter Sunday, so we were all dressed in our little Easter clothes, and my auntie, she drove us there, and my sister, my grandmother, and myself. And when we got to the Tinley Park Mental Health Center, I'm thinking, that don't look like a friend's house to me. It looked ominous you know. And when we got to the door, the doctor said, "Oh, you've come to visit your mother." And I, you know, I didn't know then about intuition and that feeling and that anxiety. I lived with anxiety for so many years because I didn't know what an empath was. I was called oversensitive, crybaby, and all that. But now I really get it, right? But anyway, at that time, I just felt very strange. And when the doctor grabbed my hand and said, "Let me walk you over to your mother," there was a woman sitting at the window. And when I got over there, I thought it was my mother. And so I let the doctor's hand go and I hurried up over there. And I went to the woman. I said, "Well, mommy, mommy." And I noticed that she didn't have any arms.
Mm.
And that was peculiar to me, but I still felt like that was my mother, you know. And she turned to me and she looked and she said, "Who are you?" And I can't tell you how that broke my heart. That broke my heart. And so, because all that time, all I was thinking was, I need my mother to hug me. And
Mm.
here she is with no arms, and she doesn't even recognize me. And, I think that was the time, I think I actually stopped talking for a while. I don't think after that they could make me talk I remember them taking me to the doctor's office, Dr. Scott, down on 51st and Prairie, but I didn't want to talk. And my family didn't know how to deal with that with children. Everybody was in survival mode. So if you had a mentally ill mother and nobody was looking after you mentally, then what is going to become of you? Right? You probably follow that same path if no one's making sure that you're okay. And this is some of the things that we have going on in our society right now because the mother or father are dealing with mental illness and refuse to take on the responsibility. And now I'm saying refuse because nowadays the internet gives you all the knowledge you want if you go and look for it.
Mhm.
So we don't
Mhm.
have, my mother had an excuse. They didn't have the internet. She couldn't find the stuff, right?
Mhm.
Back then, I read the encyclopedias trying to find it. Teresa, like when I say, they kept saying my mother lost her mind. And I was like, I'm going to help her find it because I know how to find stuff. Every time my
Mhm.
grandmother would lose it, she said, "Get Rita, she'll find it." So
Mhm.
I took on the study of the brain at the age of 8 because I wanted to figure out how does someone lose their mind? How does someone lose their mind? And technically, you really don't lose your mind. We just don't have the coping skills. We're not taught the things, what here's a test for both of you, Osir and Teresa. What's the first thing I would say is the first step when you feel like your mind is out of control? What is the first step that you can do to put yourself back in order immediately? What do you
Center. Breathe the center.
breathe to
Breathe.
center?
Number one, breathe.
Number freaking one.
Breathe. Just breathe from the belly. Just take a deep breath and just breathe.
And
So important.
literally, this is a mechanism that the creator of this
It
universe
is.
gave each one of us so that we can find sustainability with the cosmos.
Yes.
That's how we receive energy through our breath.
So
But we
important.
have it on automatic, so we don't pay attention.
Yeah.
We don't pay attention. But if you stop and consciously breathe, and like Teresa said, into your belly,
So
where you're stimulating all of your chakra systems because you go into your into your shundo. You
important.
touch all of that, and all of that energy gets to ignite, right? So part of the work is to be willing to go and do the work.
Yes.
So that's my case study. And at the age, let me see. So I was 5 when I
Um,
started falling apart, right? And realizing that my world changed forever. after that. And then when my cousin Jimmy was killed, I was 10. So my world changed, or 11, I think Aretha said. And then, it was just so many things that just kept happening, one trauma after another after another. But now, there's only one day in the year that you can be born a queen of spades. And what day is that, Ausar?
I believe it's January 2nd.
It's January 2nd. So imagine if you taught your January 2nd child that they are a queen of spades and this is what your life is meant to do, and you are a servant to the people, and you are extremely knowledgeable, and you don't have to have a whole lot of letters and degrees to prove that, because you were what Sarah would say, ordained with that. You came in here with that, right? Your child would have a better stronghold, and while people talk about them and criticize them and won't help them and don't like them. Because each one of us are divinely and uniquely made.
Yes.
You don't have to compare.
And just hearing you speak makes me just, thinking about this, the importance of listening to your child. In these cases, like you're speaking of, how traumatic that was for you at that young age of 5. And no one cared to ask you how you were feeling, or what were your thoughts, or what did you see, or what did you feel. No one even addressed that. And I think that that's the life we're still living.
We are.
We're still living. The parents think that I'm the parent, so you just roll over, be quiet. Come on, put on your coat. I'm gonna go take you to mom now. Finally, you're gonna get to see your mom. But no one addresses, especially now with all the divorce rates out there. Oh my God, we'll talk about that, right? But
Right.
My gosh, I mean, like, the child has no voice. Totally unfair. Totally unacceptable.
Well, so only to the extent.
Right. I know where you're going.
You know what I'm going to say? That we're outside of the conversation that, and listen, people, my people that's listening, we have conversations where we all have to almost be 5-headed, because we can go there, right? And so we're going to hit a conversation that you may not be ready to go there, but we want to drop that seed so that when you're ready, you can reach for it. Okay, so I'm not asking you, remember I said we want to expand your hearing, but I'm not asking you to believe anything. I'm just asking you to hear it. So one of the things that we've learned and that we teach through our comedic sciences is that, we are beings that chose to come here. We literally created a conversation that said, I need to be on earth right now for what's going on, and this is the mission that I want to do, and this is what my soul needs to learn as I do this mission. And in order to do that mission, I have to choose these people as my parents. Right? So when you get, how old was I? 47. And somebody tells you, oh, you chose your parents, you got to sit back and say, well, why would I choose a mentally ill mother and a father with no name? Never known them, never met them, never, Why would I do that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now you have to go into deep meditation, like Lugo said. You have to go into deep meditation to ask your spirit those things, because that's where the answer is going to come from. Because if you go outside of that, they're going to put you on some medication and some drugs and tell you, oh yeah, you just came into a messed up life, but we got you. We're going to put you to sleep and keep you there. Because poor baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Poor baby. So we are asking you to consider doing the work of if you chose your parents, what was it you were supposed to learn from them? And not only just them, but that whole environment that you grew up in. You even chose whether or not you were going to be rich or poor. You chose your skin color. And you can argue with me, but I'm not listening because I don't argue. I'm the teacher, right? But I'm also the teacher to myself. You need to be the teacher to yourself. Okay? So
That's
that's
that queen
that.
of
Go
that's
ahead.
that queen of spades is about transformation, and that's when I deal with all of my clients. I know they're coming for transformation. So
Yes.
that's the conversation because that's who I am.
And
And
that's what I said to somebody. And you know, I always say that the masters always show up at my door. My reflection, people, every single time, and it's so clear. And it's so clear, you know, in our group that iron sharpens iron. We all show up for each other. You all keep thinking you getting something from me, but I'm getting just as much.
right, right,
Probably more because there's more y'all interacting with me, and you know, so this is why it's so important to be inside of a conversation of spiritual expansion. Church ain't gonna do it. Being saved is not gonna do it. I'm telling you, and I'm sorry to get in that realm, but we have got to clean that mess up.
right.
But I know we have that conversation too. So let's go on to the next conversation with Ausar. I believe we're going to talk about the loss of a spouse.
The spouse one, or let me go down there find
Or
it.
which one? Whichever one you want to do. I mean,
So I got the spouse, but then the one I had up on deck was the case study of a addressing substance abuse, and
yeah, go ahead. Let's do that one. Go
so
ahead.
I have a addressing substance abuse and trauma in a 17-year-old African American male. Following the loss of his mother and incidents of molestation during detention, being in a detention camp for multiple DUI offenses. His birthday was January 6th, or is January 6th, so he's an eight of spades, and which represent transformation there, that spades, and then he's three of clubs. Here, James was his name. He's a 17-year-old African American male who has been diagnosed with multiple drug use. He turned to alcohol as a means of self-medicating following the loss of his mother, enduring molestation while in juvenile detention for multiple DUIs. The purpose of this case study is to explore James' background, the traumatic experience, the development of substance abuse, and potential interventions we can talk about. He experienced significant challenges and trauma during his adolescence, led to substance abuse. He began to drink as a coping mechanism. And that led to when he lost his mother. That didn't have a direct correlation, but ultimately his support system being his mother, she passed away. He had a lot of grief associated with it, losing his parent at a young age, and emotional effects associated with that. And so at the loss of his mother, he began to drink heavily and got arrested for multiple DUIs and was put in the detention camp. And while he was there, he had a sexual violation, by an older boy that was there. And I had noted such abuse, because of that abuse, he began to have what we would traditionally label as post-traumatic stress disorder, trust issues, low self-esteem. And so that has been leading to him dealing with mental health and substance abuse.
Cool. All right. And then his biggest fear. Do you have any record of that? Would be
His thinking back, his biggest fear it was just not being able to make it in life, because he leaned heavily since the mother died at such an early age, and so he found himself using the alcohol and drugs as a way to not even deal with that fear.
gotcha.
It insulated him from the being isolated.
Okay. Wonderful. All right, cool. Teresa, you have any questions on that or anything for Sarah with that? Oh, did I lose her? Oh, I lost her. You know what, guys? She explained to us
Mhm.
before we got on that there's a storm going on in Puerto Rico. So what Teresa is going to do, she's going to attempt to come back on with another device, but we'll keep going with this until she gets back. Okay. All right. I was taking notes. Didn't even see her
Yeah.
leave us. Okay. Very cool. All right. Let me look and see. Do we have any questions on board here? Everybody's chiming in. Yes. 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 BTC, one of my best tools. That's right. That's Bree. Tammy BT. Yep. Yep. Oh, they find the information and use it as a weapon. Tammy said people find the information and then they use it as a weapon, which is not good use of knowledge, right? You have to use that for yourself, very much so. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about, and I, you know, it's so interesting. We start and it is like, oh wow, it's 8 o'clock already. So, the conversation that I'm having right now is going to be about being a witness to murder. My client's name is Deborah. She's 95 years old and she's a female, African American. Her occupation is that she makes quilts, okay? And she lives in Biloxi, Mississippi, and her birthday is 8/12. I didn't look to see that date. I got to find that date. She has 10 children, right? And her current situation, you could say, is that she's ready to leave. The challenge is that she has witnessed the murder of her husband, and she saw her husband actually killed by white men, Europeans, racist people in Mississippi, and this affected her health most of her life. And left her to have to take care of 10 children on her own, which meant that she lived in poverty for most of her life because, you know, with 10 children, mostly if you feeding and sheltering them, that's pretty much all that you can probably do. Okay, thank you, Greg. She's an ace of diamond,
Which is resources.
resources, and Tupac. Okay, come on. And always the beginning of something new, right? And that would probably speak to why she's able to live to be 95. Because if you think about quilt making, you're always patching something together, but you're taking it from something old and creating something new. Wow. See, I didn't even know that was going to come up, but that's pretty good, right? Her fear, her fear is that she has not been able to provide enough financial security for her children and grandchildren. And of course, mostly everybody is grown. We're in the great great grandchildren. But I want us to realize that because of the society that we're in, most of our parents, their biggest thing has been, how do I take care of my children when I leave here? And one of the things that we need to start doing is making sure that our children are hooked up to source, to God, to the universe, so that it's not you that they're relying on. The story you just said a few minutes ago, Ausar, how the young brother, he was so messed up, he couldn't even get his life together. That's not a testament to good parenting, guys.
Can I
Yes,
piggyback on that?
come
So
on.
I had a conversation with a traditional believer, and she was talking about leaving an inheritance to her children's children. And she equated the inheritance to something physical, But our conversation led to her learning to teach her children how to connect with source as the abundant universe, and how to pull that stuff down and to be for them what she is in the natural, but ultimately it will be in the spirit realm. So that inheritance is not a physical thing, but learning how to work through the principles.
Work through the principles. And you know, I want you all to really get how the world has you worshiping billionaires as though that's the highest value on the planet.
And did you know billionaires mostly don't leave their fortunes to their
Oh
children?
no. Oh
Because
no, they
they
don't.
know that the child should have learned
That's
how
right.
to be resourceful and create their own wealth.
And if we're constantly giving to our children, if we're not allowing our children to fail and getting to know their own strengths, and the only way you know how strong you are is because you have failed at something and you had to pick yourself up, or somebody help pick you up, but you have to fail. You have to be willing to fall apart in order to get something different. Did I say that right?
Yeah, and the thinking process that accompanies a failing experience. And so we have to think about part of our trauma, dealing with the trauma, is the cognitions, what people think about it, how they are defining it, what the story becomes. And it can be limiting or it can be empowering. Empowering, because now I won't try anything else because I have had a failing experience.
Oh man, you know how many people we've coached. I'll never love again. I'll never give my heart away. And the universe just sitting up laughing at you. Watch.
And really, the reality is you never give your heart away. It says guard
No.
your heart.
Yes.
Right.
And it's not a giveaway.
It's real.
Absolutely.
So some of the faulty thinking we have. Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, hey Teresa. Yay. I had just explained to them. And I looked up Teresa. I was taking notes. I looked up, I said, oh, she's gone. So you're muted. You can unmute yourself and kind of tell us what's going on with you.
Well, we've had this crazy storm coming through Puerto Rico right now. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. It's a great platform, and I just send you guys all the energy that I had, and just thinking that you guys got this. So here I am, I'm back. That's the good thing about being in these kind of situations. If you've done this work that you've done, you don't sweat the small stuff. You know that it's all good, it's perfect, it's the way it is, and it's always going to be okay.
Absolutely. And you know what? We like to be authentic, real people. We don't like to do
Yeah,
all that plush, because all of that smoke and mirrors may
Right.
not have any content. We rather you
right.
have the content. Okay, you can add the smoke and mirrors later if you want to, but we rather you
Yeah,
have the content so you can go and do your own research and literally get to the point that you know that you came here with the capacity to heal yourself.
exactly.
And then
Yeah,
if you really get good, you become like one of us. You assist others in healing themselves, but you
yeah,
first got to heal yourself. Some of you are talking to too many people and you're not healed. And so
exactly.
you end up making them
And they're not healed.
there, and they're not
Right.
healed. So you got
They're
two
not doing.
healed people talking to each other,
They're not doing
Yeah.
the
giving
work.
each other advice, right? And
Yeah.
neither one is doing work.
And
And
so
you know what? Their job is to do that. Their job is to hold you back. That's their job. And because we know better, we just look at them with the eyes of compassion, knowing that they don't know better. You
Yeah,
know better. You
you
know
know
that
that.
you're the gifted one. You know that you're the chosen one. You know that you're here for bigger things. When I speak to my clients, I had a client the other day. Wow, well, she's so broken about her family and how much they just tear her apart. And all I did was build her up. I talked to her, man, and I said, remember when we met and you told me when we met the first time, I asked her to look at this. I said, do you remember we met at that park? And as soon as we started talking, because her grief was her father, excuse me, her father had just passed, and her family, I mean, they weren't there for her. She was having a hard time. But as we were speaking, all these doves, I mean, I don't know, about 20 of them just went over our head. And we both looked at each other like, oh my God, like you knew that that was her father letting her know it's going to be okay.
Yes.
And I reminded her that. And you know what? And I remind her that even now, we had another conversation last week about this. You got to understand your power is so beautiful. Your light is so bright that people come and they just want to darken it. They just throw darts at it and darts at it. But you have to rise up. You have to know your power. And you have
Yeah,
to
and
just,
you know that is so true, Teresa, and that is where the tribe come in, right there,
yeah,
where she can come to you and you can remind her of who she is,
yes,
because that's what most of us have forgotten.
yes,
I mostly, work with a lot of brother kings, and the same thing. I had to say the same thing to him. He's like, and this is going on, and this is going on. I say, first of all, you have to stop expecting things from all these other people because they're not doing the work. So for you to even compare yourself to them and what they're doing, and you're expecting them to do different, well, how can they do different? They don't know any better. You know
exactly.
better. So it's two kinds of people in the world: those that know and those that don't know. So
Teresa.
who does the responsibility fall on?
Those that
Those who
know.
know.
Okay.
And that's why you have to hold the space. You can't make people do things, but you can be an example of what it is to get it done. And maybe they'll be inspired to do the work. Maybe they'll come and ask you, hey, can you show me how, da da da? Yeah, but you still have to demonstrate that you have come from A, you had a mentally ill mother, to transforming your life and creating transformation to others. So now, yeah, you do have the expertise to speak to that, and you don't have to have a doctor in front of your name to do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is the kind of authority that we have to have in our community, because too many of us are being misled by the so called entertainers, sports
Mm,
people, leaders. It's
mhm.
just no, people.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we have got to do better. All right, so
Yeah.
we had, Teresa, I was just telling Osir as I looked at the time and I was like, oh my goodness.
I know.
So, Teresa, let's go ahead. I want you to talk about divorce and children, because this is a really important topic in our community.
Wonderful. So the client was a single mom. Um, her son was is 13 years old. She said that she was having problems with him and she needed a coach for him. And I said, no problem. Let's get the work done, and et cetera, et cetera. She was 100% ready. And as I started to do the work with him, because he, obviously he was like, what do you want? Who are you? And I was like, so tell me a little bit more about yourself. I bring all this great energy. And he's like I'm just warming up to this beautiful soul, because he's a beautiful soul that's broken. As he started to talk to me about, as he started getting comfortable, first of all, and then he started talking about the divorce and how the mom is like telling him what he needs to think and how he needs to feel and how he needs to get adjusted to this new way of living. And then he says when he goes to his father's house now, when he comes back, she wants to know who was there. Was he attentive? Was he not? What did he say? And so right away, I was just like, and how does that make you feel? So I'm just really opening up to his, where he's at, right? Allowing him to have someone to talk to about his struggles and how he feels that he's being used and not being heard. So as we start doing the work, then I include her. And I said, I really need to do a session with you and him. And then in that session, she did not like the fact that, I'm asking her to look at some things. Oh my gosh. So then now that's a big problem. So then I had to ask her if she would have time with me. I would love to do a one-on-one with her. So we had a one-on-one. She expressed to me how she did not like how I opened that book up in front of her son, that she's the mom and he's got to listen. I said, ma'am, So I had to address, and we together addressed that. And she got to see that it was her pain and feeling less than, feeling like rejection, abandonment, all the things that she was feeling. She was pushing it on this kid, poor kid, and expecting him to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was two different human beings trying to deal with a really big situation in their lives. And age had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And that it's this total disrespect for a young man's feelings for his father, the man that he saw as his foundation, a strong foundation, who he had no problems with, and yet, she was able then to finally see what she was doing, and not really seeing that she wasn't holding space for her son at all. And so finally, at the end of our sessions, we were able to bring them together, and it was a beautiful thing. And I did a reading on her and a reading on him, and how they got to see who they were in their past lives together. It was amazing.
And I love doing that.
Yeah.
I want to say this because both of you, the thing about both of you come from very religious backgrounds. So I love when I get to talk. Well, actually, most of our coaches do, don't they?
Yes.
But oh, geez, what was I getting ready to say? I got too excited. Because we come from such religious backgrounds, it's hard for us to know that it's okay to question authority, right?
Yes.
So parents have this whole thing, you got to honor your mother and your father, and this honoring someone does not mean you can't question. You have to respect how you speak and talk, and but the thing is that a lot of us don't realize is that our children came to teach us, and not necessarily be our teachers, but just in the questions that they ask and how they behave and how they make us respond and think, we change our lives. And it's supposed to be like
Yes.
that. But because
Yeah.
parents go, I'm the mama, I'm the daddy, they miss the opportunity.
Yes.
Go ahead, Osir. What were you going to say?
Yeah.
And we have to
I want
realize,
to say one thing before he says anything.
Uh,
The most important thing that I want to say about that is that this is very serious, because these are the moments that you either going to win your son or daughter's life back, or you're going to lose their life. They will not have a relationship with you. And what do they have left is the streets. You understand? And drugs
yes, Teresa.
and peer pressure.
Yes, Teresa.
So we have to understand the importance of standing with our children. Okay, that's very, very important, because they have no one else.
They have
Okay?
no one
So-
else. And if they can't get to you, there is no one else. Really, right?
There's no one else. There's the streets. And then we wonder what happened to our son. Why are they gang banging or doing?
Well, then we label them.
So-
Yes, and they're the problem child. We never look at ourselves. Absolutely.
This is so important. Trust me. Listen. Look at I get goosebumps, because I want parents to understand that our children came to grow us up. Like
Yeah.
this conversation tonight. This conversation for some people is not comfortable. And you said it. I challenge you all today to open your ear to hear, and just allow the messages to come through and see if it lands. And if it doesn't land, it's not for you. But if you have another human being that you're responsible for, I suggest you open your ear to hear today the importance of standing with your children when they're rebelling and they're not doing things your way or acting a certain way, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. I'm with you. We're standing with the children. That's how Master Force got started. We were standing with the children, right? What were you going to say now, Sarah? You were going to add to that?
The thing that make the work we do different is we do hold that position that we're divine spiritual beings. And so when we're doing the work, like when you just be a traditional mental health, the mental health is dealing with the brain, the physical, the doctors are dealing with the physical bodies. They bring in this conversation about spiritual work, but they are not doing spiritual work because they are really affiliated with a religious perspective. But the thing that when you're dealing with trauma, you have to look at the spiritual, what's behind it,
Yeah,
not just what's showing up, the physical aspect of it. Like the young man who was dealing with his mother's death and he was in the bottle. Had a conversation with him once, and in that conversation, he was saying that he was letting people down. And I said that you're not letting anyone down. I had to get to the point of you can't define yourself by your traumas. You can't define yourself by the experiences, but you may have to be able to step outside of them as the divine spiritual being and ask yourself, why is this physical container going through this?
yeah.
And we miss that. We miss when we're looking at our children as mirrors of our work we need to do, our loved ones as mirrors, the people we as a coach, with the Queen of Spade, I'm always looking at whoever's in front of me as what lesson are they giving me?
That's exactly right. That's
Am I
exactly,
evaluating myself for, because the Queen of Spades is about mastery. So
that's
when
right.
I leave this earth realm, I want to know that I have mastered, and I don't have enough life in this rotation to experience everything I need to experience. So by being a coach, I'm experiencing that person, and in experiencing that person, the oneness of being, I'm experiencing myself.
Whole and true right in front of you. Absolutely. And I want to bring something up because we mentioned children. I want us to realize how gracious the creator, whatever name you give to the source or whatever name you give, but I want y'all to know that the name that they gave is not the same name that's we're living through, right? Or living through us. Back after World War II happened, all of a sudden there was an influx of different children. New Earth children started being born because the Creator said they need help in the world on Earth because these people are about to destroy this planet. We have to send in a different set of children who cannot be easily influenced by the education system and television and society. They have to be able to stand strong and on it. So who were born were the Indigo children. Indigo children were known as system busters. They transform the world, they challenge everything, they understand on things, they have authority. They speak like they know because they really do, right? So the Indigo children started off, and then what happened to the pharmaceutical companies was they started making Ritalin, Xanax. Why? To control the New Earth children. Because after the indigos came in, the rainbows came in, the crystal came in, the star, because the universe is constantly saying, send more children, send the masters. So listen, the ascended masters still have to be born through the womb. So y'all letting them poison all of these children with vaccinations and food. The food is killing our babies. This is how serious is it. Okay, I said I wasn't gonna get too passionate about this, but y'all talk about that a little bit because this is serious. We're at war about our children. Do you all feel like that too, or am I the only one that feel like that?
Well, I look at it from the perspective that I agree with you that these children that has been born into the earth and then been subjected to the pharmaceuticals as a way of one, the doctors not understanding that these children are gifted with things that are not what would be considered not normal, but are very normal if they're spiritual children being born into the earth. They come with a set of things, clairvoyance and all these things. And so they're hearing voices, so they get a mental health diagnosis. and they get a medication regimen assigned to them. And so something else has to happen because the mental health system is failing and it's part of the problem.
Yeah. I like what Tammy is saying. Dr. Tammy said, and those who can't be conditioned, they drug them or they ignore them and don't support. Because some of us have lived through no support, complete neglect because we can't be conditioned. And so we stop looking for it out there, right? That's great, Ausar. Thank you. All right. I think we have time for one more, guys. You know, I'm like, ah. Okay, so what's the last one do we need to talk about? You all have the list in front of you.
I have the married. I have the death of the spouse.
Okay, let's do death of a spouse, and then we'll try to end with overachievers. Okay, so go ahead. Let's
So
go.
the birthday of the female here, it was a September 15th. She's a nine of clubs and a nine of spades, which is interesting because now looking at it, it's all about transformation.
Yeah.
And so
And
in this,
endings.
yeah,
Yes.
her name was Sarah. I call her Miss Sarah. She was a 47-year-old married female who experienced significant trauma after witnessing her husband suffer a sudden heart attack during a traffic stop involving an intimidating, disrespectful Asian police officer. This was in Chicago. Tragically, her husband passed away after 2-week hospitalization as a result of the traffic stop. This case study was to explore Sarah's background, traumatic incident, its impact on her mental well-being, relationships, and potential interventions. She had been married for 21 years and had led a relatively stable life. The traumatic incident unfolded when she was in the car when her husband had a heart attack during this distressing encounter with this particular Asian police officer. So that's this individual.
All right. So and then did they have children, Ausar? Any
Um, I think that she adult children. She had been married 21 years, and
adult? And
so
then do you know her occupation at the time? Do you know?
um, I think she was a stay-at-home mom. He was the
Okay.
uh,
Main provider.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Wonderful. Okay. All right. So that, inside of that conversation, when you watch something happen and the person that you love seems to be destroyed during that time, there's a lot of anger that you have at that person that caused that to happen.
Oh, I think about she did have an older son because in one of the sessions I recall she was dealing with him feeling as though she didn't intervene, and so she was dealing with that. And that didn't happen until months after the situation that they got into a dialogue, and he was imposing on her that she could have did more. And
Wow. Yes. I've had those conversations about my husband who was killed. Yeah. And it's so crazy because and I think Teresa, when I look back, it was like, did I talk to my children about that? It's so many things, right? It's
Yeah.
like you think that children aren't paying attention or they aren't aware, so you fail to include them. But we have to have language that we can speak to children about situations where we don't put the trauma on them, but we can talk and communicate what's going on and relieve their anxiety.
you know
Yeah.
what? You projecting traumas onto people.
Yep.
Like even when we celebrating Juneteenth and the trauma story keeps coming back because they have peddlers of trauma.
Come on.
And
Slavery, the whole
exactly,
slavery the whole racism conversation is
right.
and
So yeah,
anxiety and,
right,
and people that, racism. Racism is not a reason to fail.
right.
Stop letting people tell you this.
But it's the way they set it up.
It's set up. No, but I'm just saying,
Right.
stop paying attention to that.
Right. And even if there's past generational trauma, it's still not a reason to fail. There's
It's
some
not a
choice.
reason to fail.
Right.
It's
That's-
not.
So, and it's you are at the place where you can complete something,
Yeah.
not necessarily have to repeat something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I caution people when they do like past life regressions and they start talking about the trauma that was experienced in the past life. All of us have to be realize the trauma that our mothers may have been going through while they was carrying us in the womb. That trauma is we exposed to that, but how we deal with that, it enriches the tapestry of our unfoldment.
Absolutely. And it becomes part of our character to help us fulfill on our mission. It's like a
Right.
building block if we use it.
So there are really no victims.
Uh-oh.
Say that again.
Oh, Sarah, repeat that. That was you we were saying.
Yeah, there are really no victims, but all participants.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Did you get that,
Definitely.
Rita?
Yeah. And yeah, I do. And Tammy said the racism conversation lowers your vibration and is designed
Yes.
to do that. It's designed.
Yeah.
If I got you worried about asking, so listen, if I want freedom, I'm not gonna ask you for it.
There's
Yeah.
no trauma in the spirit.
No.
All trauma resides in the memory, which is the brain and the body.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And all of us have lived enough trauma to know that. We're not
Right.
talking
Yeah.
theory here. We're talking about our lives. Right.
But you also want to just check in even with your children in these schools, because I also as a parent had experience where had I not stepped into the school that my son was attending, he probably was, and he was dealing with a lot of racism and being treated a certain way and he was put into classes that he had no business being in.
Absolutely.
So there's also stuff that, even as parents, we have to be mindful that there is racism out there, unfortunately. And yes, we have to step in as parents and check it out and see what they're teaching your children and where
Absolutely.
they're placing your children,
Absolutely.
so kind of goes both ways too.
It goes both ways.
Even as a
So-
business owner.
And now I didn't say racism didn't exist. What I said was it's not an
No, I know.
excuse for failure. So
Exactly. Got it.
yeah, so that doesn't mean that I've had ageism, racism, sexism, cutism. Okay, I done lived them all.
But it's
Not
the
an
response.
excuse.
The thing
Got it.
about trauma is not the event itself, but the response. So even how we respond to, that's why breathing is important, because it gives you a break in between situations where you can make a decision. So the response, trauma response, usually people automatically have like the startle response, can't sleep, all those things. But when you help a person realize they are not their physical body, then they can begin to understand that they step aside from it and make this different choices.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Wow, you know what? It's so okay. I'm not going to start another conversation because it's already 8:30, and I really want to be respectful of your time because you two. I don't know if I stated this earlier, but all of our speakers, producers, and executive producers volunteer to do this show. And we have several of our other shows on YouTube, so you can look at the past 10 years and learn even more. And I think we even did maybe 3 different versions of New Earth Children, because we do
Yes.
our hardest for the children. So I want to thank you all, Teresa and Ausar. And
Let me ask you a question.
yes.
What just expect?
Wait, go back.
next
Say
to
that
look
again.
like?
Say that again. You went out. Say that again.
What can our audience expect the next 3 days to look like?
The next 4 days. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So the next 4 days, and I was just getting ready to do that. We have now this today was the layout of the case studies, and we will be looking at those throughout this week and applying different information for each one. Tomorrow night, we will be talking to Yetunde, and we will be looking at a path to heal, and we will look at the healing arts and really discuss, how do you do self-healing? What does that look like? And this is the disclaimer. We're not talking about being doctors or healers or anything. We're telling you about our own personal experiences or the experiences of our clients and how we've used different methodologies to support them. So we're not telling you to use our information. Talk to a medical provider if you're having problems, okay? But what we are giving you is, we're giving you information that you can go and further research and support yourself in getting to know yourself. So tomorrow night we talk about a path to heal. And then on Wednesday, we go into one of Master Force's main pieces called the Master Teachers. And we really examine how to use Master Teachers as our own mirror, like you mentioned earlier, Ausar, as our own mirror to get to the gift of what trauma is hiding. And that's with Dr. Tammy. And then on Thursday, we talk to is two people, Kiana and Usheas, and we're looking at how trauma affect relationships. And those could be married relationships, relationships with our parents, relationships with our children, but why it's important to support each other in relieving that trauma. Right? And then we come back on Friday and we look at how to be spiritually grounded through all of this. Because we're saying to you that we can hear them trying to make all of us mentally ill. But if you get spiritually grounded, you come out of your head and you hook up to the source energy that can help you take care of everything. That's what we were designed to do.
Yes.
We came here designed to do that. We've had several master teachers show us and tell us that, but I want y'all to know other people are telling you differently because they want you to be controlled. They don't want you to be self-actualized, and they don't want you to love life either. They want you to be full of anxiety and fear and pain so that you can move like a pawn across here and never ask a question.
Yeah.
So, does that help, Sarah? We'll see you on Friday again, right? Did you
That's
have?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, before we close out, I want you guys to let people know, how to get in touch with you, anything you have going on, and then any final comments you want to give to our listeners before we sign off.
Ladies first.
Yeah. And I thank you for that, because I knew that that's who you are, Ausar. So I just figured I should speak first. And I want to really recommend you read my book. That's all I have to say. Homeless Mind is on Amazon. And in this book, in the back cover, I also have my website, information on my nonprofit called Land Heart Project. But this book covers a lot of what we talked about tonight. It talks about the loss of a loved one. It talks about parenting, new earth children, being able to support your child, standing with your child. I cannot tell you the importance of that. And really listening or going through being vulnerable in your life, allowing the old you just to die, just to strip all those labels off of all those labels you gave yourself, and be willing to be vulnerable. Let it go and just emerge. Allow God to use you and bring you to a place of this newness of who you truly are, the essence of who you are, and being able to be that tool on this earth to be the change in this earth. We can only go so far with running after money and titles and business and all that. But what have you done for your neighbors? What have you done for your community? Yeah. Have you volunteered? If you haven't, please understand that that's why we're here. We're here to love one another, support one another, and to build our communities. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, so let's stand on that. Let's stand on that principle. Get my book. It's called Homeless Mind. It's on Amazon. And I think that it would help you to open up to that possibility and to continue to grow in your own life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Teresa. I'll be in Puerto Rico soon. I will. I promise.
I love you guys. I love you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for tonight.
Oh, Sarah, what about you? How can people get in touch with you? What
Well,
do you have going?
I dropped a couple things in the feed there. Solutions for Living is a one of my pages. Also, Solutions, the
Ah,
soul,
I like that.
solutionsforliving.com is my website. Go out there, poke around. All the work I do I deal in the looking at the birth card that you're born on inside of, and doing the work around your spiritual essence. Whatever your religious path is, I help you to pull the spiritual essence from that. So a phone number is there. You need to reach out to me. I'll give you more information on Friday.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I mean, let me tell you something. I can't even tell you how I ended up being on my mission, but the reason I know that I'm on my mission because I have the most amazing people in my space, and that includes the two of you.
Oh,
So
thank
thank you so much, and thank you always, all the coaches, every single one that are going to be on this week are always a yes.
you. Yeah.
I mean, hands are go up so fast, and I'm so grateful to that because when spirits say this is what we need to share with the
Yes.
community, we say okay, and we go do our research and we go and look in our life and we go and pull out the resources. So we ask
Yeah.
you to join us the rest of the week. Tomorrow you get a QR code so you can see and use the case studies and look at some of the other stuff and resources. But thank you for joining us tonight. And remember,
And Moo, let me ask you a question. What's the name of the YouTube channel that they can look up?
yes, Ignite Your Soul Connection. That's the
Wonderful.
YouTube channel. So this will upload tonight, and you can look at all the previous shows on there now.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Highly
Thank you
recommend
so
it.
much.
Love you.
All right, you guys stay on while
Goodbye.
we turn out. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
See you all
Thanks for
tomorrow.
listening. It's been an amazing week.